Hello flexi friends! Today I have a tip for those of you who are working on your back flexibility and are looking to go deeper into your lower back and your back bends without it starting to get pinchy or painful or uncomfortable. Well, there are of course lots of things you can do to be working on your low back flexibility. One of the things that often helps is engaging your rectus abdominis. Those are your six-pack muscles that connect our ribs and our sternum down to our hips. So when they contract, we can think of it pulling us into that crunching motion. When they shorten, but we can also have those muscles contracting as they lengthen, and that helps moderate how much we're arching backwards and how much pressure and weight is going into the low back. One way to find those muscles to use them in a cobra pose to see if using that engagement makes our low back a bit more comfortable is to start in a kneeling plank. So on my knees, we're gonna start with like 10 out of 10 ab engagement, trying to pull the front of our hips towards the bottom of our ribs. So you should feel those abdominal muscles contracting nice and strong. Now this is great for ab engagement, but of course we need to add a back bend. So go ahead, soften that squeeze to something that's like an 8 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. So we still feel some tension. Those hips are dropping a little bit, but maybe they're not on the ground again. Go ahead, soften it down to 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, and then just continue to soften until it feels like enough support where it can take some pressure out of the low back, but the front of our belly isn't completely soft, and see if that feels like a more comfortable arch to you. Then you can compare that with noodle belly. Belly totally relaxed, where you're just using your arms to try to push you into your cobra pose. Odds are that one does not feel as comfortable in your low back. One other drill I really like is working on our hip tilts in our cobra. This is a way where we can start turning on those abdominal muscles without starting in a full plank. This is a little easier to do, starting in our low cobra where our belly is on the ground. First, we're gonna engage this rectus abdominis along with our glutes and technically your hamstrings as well by tucking the tailbone towards the floor, trying to pull the bony parts at the front of the hips up towards our ribs, and then letting that engagement go. Tucking the tailbone, letting the engagement go. So you'll notice when you tuck that tailbone, the low back arches a little bit less. Now you can start working on using those muscles in the front of your core, keeping a little bit of tension there and trying to come back to that nice neutral low back arch that we had to start. If that's feeling controlled in your low cobra, we can add a little bit more weight and work on that same engagement in our high cobra. Now your hips might not tilt quite as much because we've got more of an arch in the low back to start, but try a little bit of a tailbone tuck. Your hips might lift a little bit off the ground, that's okay. Keep that engagement through your belly as we try to place those hips back on the ground, coming back into that nice low back arch, but with the muscles through the front of the belly staying a little bit engaged. Tuck the tailbone a little bit more, and then we'll try to soften those hips back to the ground until you find your version of your high cobra where we've got that support through the front of the body, letting us arch in that low back a comfortable amount.